Excellence podcast. Today I have a veteran real estate agent in the studio. She has over 18 years of experience in real estate in St. Augustine, a Florida State graduate who had a huge 2022, already off to amazing 23. She has hung her license with one of the largest real estate brokerages in the region, Watson Realty. Let's welcome Amy Gibbs to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for making the trek all the way up from St. Augustine Beach. That can be a little trip. Better that school's out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Makes it a little easier, especially coming down this road here with the three schools. When I come in the morning during school, I got to go through at least two school zones. The middle school's not up yet. It comes later. But appreciate you making the trip up. And like I said before the show, I really want to, with your experiences, I'm sure you've had a lot of trials and tribulations and a lot of successes and stuff that, someone, I said, you were asked to come in front of the local board or something and talk to new agents, share some of those things, hopefully in our conversation today, about some things you did that didn't work, some things you'd never try again or don't recommend others, but maybe you and I know, some people like to knock on doors and very successful. Other people are not successful at it. So there are, just depending on who we are, and I'm sure that's something you've noticed, because one of the questions I will ask you later is, what have you learned about yourself? So you have time to think about that when we get there.
Okay.
But let's kick off. Where are you from?
I am from St. Augustine. I was born in the Flagler Hospital downtown that is no longer there, but that's where, I was born and raised in St. Augustine, Florida. One of the few locals.
And then went to St. Augustine High, I assume.
Correct.
Okay.
There was St. Augustine High and St. Joe. They were building Nice, or had just built Nice High School when I was there.
Right.
So St. Augustine High School was the high school.
The high school, really?
Yeah, we refer to it
in
as the
in
high
the
schools.
county, right? I mean, really in St. Johns County, because then there was Nice, and then I think, Bartram and Ponte Vedra kind of come next somewhere in there, and Pedro and Bartram are identical schools. I think they were probably built at the same time.
But back in the good old days.
Yeah. Well, I always, I live off of 210, and we moved here in 2000. My wife went to Florida State.
Okay.
She's a little bit younger than you and I. But she went to Sandalwood. But people talk about Cole Slate talks about 210 being a dirt road. It really wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
That's one of the very few places that I've actually got to use my navigation. Because I'll just turn a corner and there's a new road that I have never seen before. Yeah. So.
And then I'm sure you're bringing clients now through the whole Silverleaf and that expansion there as the county has constantly. And then obviously you drive anywhere around the county, there's more land being cleared, new roads going in. So you went to Florida State. Nutrition and health was more or less your major.
Correct.
Right? What was your aspiration at that time as a young person, what you wanted to do for a career?
I was always interested in the sciences, always interested in nutrition and kind of that field, and it was an easy direction for me to go. And once I got into the field, I was doing personal training up in Connecticut and New York area, and then it just sort of segued into management of one of the gyms, and then I got on that side of the business. And so it started to change for me. The information was still there for me to share with people and the lifestyle that I wanted, to lead.
Right.
But it just sort of segued, in a different direction in the business.
So you actually left Florida for a little bit.
I did leave Florida for a few years. It
Yeah.
was really cold. So after a few years and a blizzard, headed back to Florida.
Yeah.
So, at that point, I just had I had changed directions a little bit with where I went with my degree and got into more of a management position. And then over time, it segued once again into real estate.
Right. Well, so American Fitness Institute is what I got off your LinkedIn, if I copied that off there correctly. That's you. So that was kind of more or less your first job out of Florida State.
Right.
Yeah. But then you make a jump to Edward Jones, which is, because you're running your own, I assume you're running your own office there. So there's a little, obviously you're business savvy there, but going from the fitness and nutrition where more or less people are coming to you to where Edward Jones is a tough racket to, as a someone, they give you that office, they give you all the training, all the tools, but you got to get out and shake hands and kiss babies.
Right. Well, I will say that when I was at Edward Jones, that was my temporary job that lasted for 8 years, and I was senior branch office administrator. So I was not selling. I was handling the rest of the business.
Okay.
So I was the face you saw when you walked in the door, but they're only 2-person offices, so it was very hands-on. Just like real estate, it's a relationship business. You have to get to know, your customers, your clients. Everybody's different, has different needs, all of that. So it did teach me a lot, not only about relationships, which you have to have in any business,
right.
But also taught me a lot of the financial side. So segueing into real estate after 8 years in a brokerage firm was an easy transition as far as understanding the financial side of, that type of business.
I didn't totally lose my train of thought, because occasionally I will do that.
That's okay.
I'm always listening to my guests. But the presence of a 2-person office, you and then obviously the senior person who actually is responsible for, giving people guidance, but also responsible for people getting them in the door at the same time, which is much like real estate,
right?
100%. The and being that aspect of being out, I think people lose don't understand, or maybe don't necessarily think about the retail side of things, where people walk in your store and buy a shirt or something, versus you actually having to go out and bring people in. Edward Jones creates those nice offices and nice retail locations, but the reality is most of those people are coming in probably on scheduled appointments. They're not just walking in the door going, "Hey, can you have someone handle my finances for me?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of what we did, since it was a 2-person office, is we would get out and host seminars and talk to people. And what was great about the location that we had was it was in a shopping plaza, and there's
the traffic.
Right, you've got your grocery store, you've got your hairdresser, your little restaurants, and so you did start to we did get people who walked in the door, or there was a lot of word of mouth around that immediate neighborhood. So it was kind of like your neighborhood brokerage.
Yeah.
We'd have people that came in every day just to chat and get their coffee from the grocery store.
Well, you almost have to create that atmosphere, and to talk about how it relates to real estate. You create that. It takes a number of touches to build the credibility, right? And then the influence that you now are. You're a real estate agent, but to be their finance person, you need those coffee times, right?
Right.
Yeah, you need those touches, because I think most people need financial advice. They don't get it. Just like most people, a lot of people need a will. They don't have wills, unfortunately. And you have to go out and educate consistently. Which, would you agree? I mean, in 18 years of being in the business, a lot of your marketing, at least what's being pushed out there by the top coaches like the Krista Mashores and so forth, is you have to pour out the education, especially in your social media content and so forth.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I really try and make sure whatever I put out there is doing. And actually, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's not, you're not trying to sell your service. You're trying to educate and provide value, and really understand whatever your local market is, be the expert in that, and be able to share that and educate, and make sure that you're taking care of your customers, your friends, your family, whatever questions they have, about real estate and taxes and insurance and whatever the case may be, and construction. You've got to be able to educate them and help them along that path. Every person is on a different journey. They're at a different station in their lives. They all need something different. And so the longer that I've been in the business, the more you always see it, and you tailor your relationships with people based on what they need.
Right.
But you really get better about diving deeper into that, how a couple communicates with each other and with you, and what the dynamics are, and what they need. And everybody needs something different, and they have different risk tolerance, there are different emotional levels. Purchasing and selling a home is typically the largest purchase or sale people make. It's very emotional. It's a product. We say you're selling your house, it's fine.
Yeah.
But
there's another house down the street. Don't worry about
it's
it.
Just fine.
Yeah.
But you never want to lose sight of the fact that this is their home.
Right.
Whether it's their primary home, their second home, this is a big, emotional and financial investment for them, and you've got to be aware of that. So I never, I don't forget that, and I make sure when I sit down with people that I'm not losing sight of the fact that everyone across the table for me is different.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to work through their journey, their story with them.
I had Krista Mashore on a few episodes back, and she's a national coach and has a big business in California. And she brought up some real interesting, talking about that was her statement. Not that it's rocket science, but we know a lot of our industry people, whether it's on the loan officer side or the real estate agent side, we don't educate enough. One of the things that she said is why you won't, with her coaching, obviously, and I'll get into what she coaches, but because it's pretty simple, if you don't build the value through the education, they just assume you're a commodity. Oh, you're a real estate agent. You're just going to get my contract signed and so forth. And because these people not buying and selling a home every year or, several times a month as you are, we have to break down all the things that you are actually doing and educating. Hey, it's important that, hey, you've got to get pre-qualified and get a good lender. You start there, right? And you're what are you doing if you're listing the house, the little things you're doing that no one ever sees, behind the scenes, and educating them on that over a course of time to build value. So when you do go in there and they've seen your social media content or whatever your marketing materials are, they're like, well, hey, Amy is going to do this. She's going to put my pictures over here. I've seen examples of her previous listings. I'm signing the line, not sitting there negotiating with you what your commission structure is.
Right.
Yeah.
And you never want things to be a surprise. I mean, in every real estate transaction, there's going to be things that come up that are not going to be, in your perfect little timeline and how you'd like them to go. And you do have to kind of roll with those changes, and surprises as they come up. But setting the expectations, educating whether you're buyers, your sellers, to say, exactly, this is how I work, this is what you can expect from me. I actually have, and I think most of them actually read it. I try not to make it overwhelming. I've got a buyer's guide.
Right.
I've got a pre-listing, guide, and it outlines from start to finish how the process works. Like you said, how to get pre-qualified, what types of loans there are. This is how this is how the timeline is going to go to buy. This is how the timeline is going to go to sell. These are all the things that you need to do. These are all the things that I'm going to do. This is how we're going to work together to get us from point A to point B. And I put it in writing. I've got a packet, and it's start to finish. I actually was showing property a couple of weeks ago, one of my listings, and as happens a lot, in St. Augustine in Florida, the buyer's from out of state. He had clearly bought and sold property before. This was not his first, purchase. And I said, well, I know this is not your first purchase, but I do have a buyer's guide, and I'd love to share this with you. Tell us a little bit about, how I work and how the process works. He said, well, you know what? He said, I think it's great. He said, I've never bought property in Florida, and it's probably different here than it is in, Virginia or Colorado or California or wherever they're coming from.
Right.
So those kinds of things, they show that I've taken the time to outline the process to make sure I'm educating you on how it works. And he's right. Every place you go is a little bit different. So there's always something for them to learn. And we never want to assume they know how this is all going to go.
Right. Right.
So,
well, I mean, the common question, obviously, on my side is like, what's the cost going to be? Depending on what state you're in, there's different costs.
Right.
We're kind of in the middle here in Florida. North Carolina, really cheap. You go to New York, pay at least twice.
Right.
What you pay here. What's the customary fees? those type of things, not that they need a detailed down to the dollar breakdown, but to realize, who's paying, what percentage of the cost roughly, obviously, things like, on our side is obviously people, don't understand that, hey, you got to pay your insurance up front, especially a first-time home buyer. Yeah, you got to pay your insurance the whole year up front. They're going to prorate your taxes. So even if I told you that the costs are $5,000, you got to add a couple $1,000s more because, depending on how big the home and how much the taxes are,
right,
in that area, and breaking it down. But I think you made the statement, you're not sure if they read it or not. It really, from your side, it's great that they read it, but it's really the gesture that you've spent the time and done the due diligence, that you've broken it down, that if they needed to refer to something, they've got it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and it does sound like for the most part, the people I've shared it with have really, they've dived into it, and they, appreciate the information. Like you said, they can use it as a reference too.
Mm-hmm.
What did she say? If I want to do a VA loan, what are my qualifications, and who do I need to talk to?
You can't in that conversation when you're going, like say you're going in for a listing appointment, and you give them, here's my, would you call it the listing guide? What do you call it?
Pre-listing.
Pre-listing guide. You're leaving them with something in their hand, more than just your business card. Because the conversation is not something, although they're physically in the house, but what the services you're going to provide, they can't really touch and smell that, right? They're not going and buying a new car and then getting the leather seat and they know what it's going to, feel like when they drive away.
Right.
That you're actually leaving them something in their hand at the end of the conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, in any agent, and there are so many good agents out there, and the relationship between, all of us is so important to make this whole industry work as well. But any agent can go into a listing appointment with comps. Here's what's sold in your neighborhood.
Right.
I'd like to list your house. I have a really pretty sign. But you have to create that value, and it's about the building the relationship too. So, like I said, there's a different dynamic with every buyer and seller.
Yeah, we would like to think that every referral you get from your friend is a slam dunk, right? Oh, you were referred by my friend, so they're going to list with me. I'm really just going to go in here and do a little song and dance for 5 minutes, and they're going to sign our listing contract, right? But for really, when you think about the long-term relationship, that's your moment to make that person your best friend. It's no longer just Sally's best friend was referred to you, but now this friend is your friend because you spend that little extra time and treat them with. I think the latter or the former is the typical agent, and why they're not at the top levels is to take a few minutes and make one of these buyer's guides, because it's not like you're recreating it every time you go to an appointment.
Right.
You're creating it once. There's a lot of agents like yourself that probably have a template. There's thousands of templates out there that you can get to take a few minutes and build that and make that part of your marketing.
Right. And like you said, it's taking the time to do it, and that does resonate with the people you share it with.
Yeah.
You took the time, to really take this process seriously and share that with them and answer any questions that they have.
All right. So you're at Ed Jones for 8 years. When do you start getting a taste for real estate? What makes you make that break here?
Well, I will say that just from the get-go, I'm not a sit at a desk 8 hours a day person. And somehow I did that for 8 years. So for me,
I never thought I was a cubicle person until I started working at Quicken Loans initially. It was out in cubes. I was like well,
okay, I need a change of scenery.
Yeah.
So it was just, it was at a time where, family was growing. I'm sitting at this desk. I'm like, I need to get out of this desk. I need to have something that's more, at the time you say flexible, which that's a myth, a big old myth. But, it was time for a change on a lot of levels. And so, I got my license, and, we had little ones at home, and, the business kind of grew as they grew. And, it's always been a part of my family's life too. They know when I'm on a work call, when they're this big, I'm like, on a work phone call.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of juggling for a
Yeah,
long time, but yeah.
Or the phone rings. Shut up.
Work call.
Mute the TV.
Yeah. So it was just, it was time. It was time
Yeah.
to get out from, behind a desk. Even now, I call it my cave. Sometimes I need to go in the cave at my office and just have quiet, get all my work done. But I'm best on the go.
But what did you meet some real estate agents while you were at Edward Jones? I mean, what kind of give you that thought? Because it's a totally different industry.
Right. There were always real estate agents that had accounts there too.
Okay.
So I would talk to them and kind of got a feel for what they were doing, and and that intrigued me. And like I said, the financial side that I really, was comfortable with from being exposed to the Edward Jones investment side of it. I felt that I could comfortably transition into that, and also being from St. Augustine, I'm like, I know this market. I've lived in this market, and I can really educate people on on the city and the town and the beaches and the Texas and the and hurricanes and all of the different levels of what it means to live here, and the school systems and all of that. I felt like I really had a solid foundation to be able to go out and comfortably do that. And the selling part really wasn't ever anything that I really focused on. I didn't feel like I was ever a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I formed relationships and I knew my market, and you still learn things. I would try to learn something from the home inspector every time, or the lender every time, or the insurance company every time. I would ask questions just for my own
Right.
education, and that way it just kept layering, and so I was able to share more and more with buyers and sellers and connect them with more and more people who could,
Right.
answer those questions more deeply if I couldn't.
I always ask this question if you've listened to my shows. That I always like to talk about that first, because I think everyone's first 12, maybe 24 months, depending on the individual and who they match up with, as far as brokerage. You started, it was about 2005, February 2005. I remember for your LinkedIn, because I started in the loan business in September 2005.
Okay.
So, the first brokerage that you went to, which you mentioned he sold off and no longer in business. But I mean, did you choose that just because you knew them or a friend was there? What was your choice of first brokerage? I mean, did you even think about any other brokerages in 2005?
Right.
Yeah.
The thing that drew me to that brokerage, and of course the business has changed drastically since then.
Yeah.
But I did know the broker. I had met him through some mutual friends. He went to high school with two of my aunts. It's still a small town.
Yes.
So I knew him. I knew his
Another St. Augustinian.
Exactly. So I not only knew him, but I knew his reputation, which was important. The offices were located right in the historic district downtown, and that was at a time where people would walk in.
Yeah.
You had people just walk in. The phone would ring all the time. It was just a very different dynamic. So location was really important there too, because you would get business that just walked in the door.
Yeah.
You would get Flagler parents whose kids, they wanted to buy a house for their kids to live in while they were there. Or you would get people say, I've vacationed here for the last 20 years. I would love to buy a house and retire here. So it was a combination of things. I liked the people that worked in that brokerage, very localized, and it was a great location. And it was a good place to learn the business. So he was very hands-on. He was a selling broker, but also very hands-on with whatever you needed.
Well, you're at Watson now, and Watson has, really, if anyone, what's his business plan is really bringing in new agents. You're the experienced agent that comes over. When you look at what these agents are getting today from Watson's structure and training and a lot of things, obviously having a great broker like Beth down there, versus you coming in 2005, the tools that you had to work with. Wow. Yeah.
Apples and oranges. Yeah. And when I did decide to make the switch when the other brokerage was being sold, that was a huge reason that I went to Watson, is because I had been very hands-on in every single aspect of design and post hole digging and, you know, I mean, everything that I did for my business, I did.
Right.
And Watson just had so many resources for me that still take effort and hands-on time on my part, but there are so many things there that are tools and education that help me take the pressure off of me and help me focus more on customers.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. And they're always changing and upgrading and, you know, and it takes that pressure off you to say, oh my goodness, what am I going to, you know, how am I going to design this, or who, you know, how am I going to send this mailing out? And I mean, just little things that take hours out of your day.
To touch on that a little bit, because I think one of the challenges, and again, talking to, you know, 130, 40 of the top agents in the area, you know, a lot of them, you know, the newcomer group, Sadie and Luke were on here. One of their regrets was they didn't hire the assistant a year earlier to take some of these tasks off that maybe, in this case, Watson's taking off for you because of their infrastructure that they already have as a larger corporation. What are some of those things that they kind of took off you to free up some of your time to spend on more income producing activities?
Gosh, there's a lot. And it's funny because I'm so used to kind of doing everything myself. There's probably things that I
Oh yeah. Well, some of the bigger things, yeah.
Yeah. I just do it. I mean, you know, they've got, I mean, if I wanted to do, and no, it sounds silly, but if I want to do a postcard mailing before, I was designing the postcard mailing. I am not a graphic artist.
Right.
I never have been, I never will be, you know.
Right.
And, you know, they've got templates or design your own, and you say, I want to do a bulk mailing to this radius, and boom, gone.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, that took 10 minutes versus me trying to figure out how to design it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so they've got a lot of marketing resources. They've got a lot of social media resources that I can either build on or customize, and I do my own as well. But there's always those resources you can go back to and use. They do a ton of training, both for new agents and for agents, you know, moving along through the process, or more experienced agents. So there's always new training, new things to learn, new platforms that they give us access to make our job easy to gather data for market analysis or whatever it is. I mean, they're constantly trying to improve the resources that they can provide us. And, you know, you take the time to do, you know, some training sessions on them, and then you've got another tool in your toolbox that just makes your job easier. And I don't ever have to dig another 4x4 post hole. That's great.
Beth's got somebody running around doing that for you?
Yeah.
Okay. The office. Obviously, you know, there's Florida Homes, there's EXP, now there's Real out there from the virtual side. You've been doing this 18 years. If they got rid of offices, you could probably still survive because you've been doing it. How important, though, is it for you in your mindset, the way you do business, to have that office, to be able to go in there and, you know, chat with Beth or the other top agents of your ideas? How much is that? How important is that?
To me, it's very important because our business a lot is, you know, we run our business. Like I run my business, you know, and each other agent runs their own business. But the group that we've got there in our office, everyone is so supportive of the other. And if you're stuck on something, someone's always there to help you. You know, and if I'm running through the office and there's a newer agent, you know, deer in the headlights, writing first contract, you know, and if it's on the weekend, and I'm like, I got this, sit down.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna walk you through this. And so, you know, you take every opportunity you can to help others, you know, the way that you would want to be helped, and that other people have helped me through the years. So it's a really supportive, fun group in there, and it's a place that I do like to go, and it's a great place to be able to, you know, to bring customers to. And if there's any other, if I'm, you know, up in Green Cove or Orange Park or, you know, down in Flagler, and I need an office to meet customers at, then Watson welcome.
There's a Watson office not too far away.
There's a Watson office somewhere with a nice conference room, and you can sit down and make everybody feel, you know, feel at home. So it's a really good atmosphere there.
You're out at St. Augustine Beach. There's, I think St. Augustine has a lot of unique things about it because how old it is. And obviously, if you're in the older sections, if you go out and you're in this, you know, cookie cutter subdivisions that are being built today, it's a little easier. how important when you're able to walk in that office, because I imagine you've probably come across transactions along the beach because of different code, way the house was built, different situations like that. I mean, can you remember something where you kind of ran across one of those gotcha, like, if you didn't really talk to the seller, study the property, most agents would have just sold the property and not told the buyers, oh, by the way, you don't have beach access or whatever it might be.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of unique things down there.
Exactly. And I will say it happens all of the time because every single property down there is different.
Yeah.
When it was built, where it was built, like you said, where the beach access are you in the city, the county, the city of St. Augustine Beach?
Yes.
What your zoning allows as far as short-term rentals, and every zoning is different within each of those three categories. I mean, there's so many little minute details that I need to be well versed on.
Right.
And so every single one of those is different. I mean, I always tell my buyers, I'm like, okay, you guys walk in and look at all the shiny things because that is fun, and that's what looking at houses is fun, but I'm going to be looking under the sink. I'm going to tell you if there's copper plumbing.
Right.
And I'm going to look at your electric panel. I'm going to tell you whether it's insurable. I said, and then we're going to meet
Because some of those houses are that old.
Yeah. I said, and so agents have to know those things. It's not look at three houses and pick one. I mean, so you say, was there one instance? It's kind of every deal. And I do a lot on the island, and I do, I'll sell real estate anywhere in St. Johns County, and I go out of the county when I've got customers that need to do that. But it's a lot of information that is so important for them as a seller or a buyer to understand, and how it affects the value of the property and how it affects how they're going to be able to live in the property.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of layers.
Yeah, no, I had a guest on, and he was one of the things, he had a beach property, and he went and did the due diligence to find out people were using the access because they were allowed to. But when that access property was purchased by someone else, they didn't have access, and unless they were had an agreement, none of these it was just they allowed it, so everyone assumed that they could have access. And if you're not doing your due diligence, you're buying that house and paying that extra money because you think you have access,
right,
when really you don't.
So, and you use the word assume. I tell people that all the time. I said, now one would assume, logically that this would be the answer, but we all get in trouble when we assume. So we're not going to do that. We're going to find the answer. Is this a public right of way, or is this privately owned, or, what you, like you said, what you do and don't have access to. So there's
the Airbnb. Have you run into? I know what's it? St. Augustine Beach is 100 permits or something. Is that so? I've had. I know it's happening. We can just statistically figure it's happening. You have agents who are not readily doing business there, bringing buyers there, not realizing they're looking for an Airbnb, realizing unless there's an actual Airbnb that's selling that permit. I mean, can they sell that permit to the next seller?
Right.
They can.
So, and it's different. The beach has different rules, and the city has different rules, and the county has different rules.
Yeah.
So, in some areas, yes, the permit can go with the home, and in others, the permit goes with the owner. So, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, we get calls all the time, Florida's a great state, and people want to live here, and St. Johns County is the #1 rated school district in the state. I mean, there's so many reasons that people come, to Florida, but, you'll get a call, and they say, okay, we'd love to move here. We're going to Airbnb it until we retire. And, we'd like something with a pool, walking distance to the beach, and we want to spend under, X. And you just go, okay, well, if you want to live in it, or if you want to Airbnb it and you want to be here, there's so many moving parts. What you've told me is not necessarily going to line up all together. So what are what are your must-haves? Because if you want to live here, that's not your Airbnb. Or if you want your price point, we can go over the bridge,
right?
And we can get you that, but that's not as good of an Airbnb area,
right?
So I think people just assume they can kind of do whatever they want with their property down here, and that starts the education.
Well, about 5 years ago, you probably could, but now you can't.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Because they continue to battle down there, but it's so very important. having been, I was on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee for St. Johns County, and these kind of discussions were had, and brought up. I mean, yeah, whether you're downtown or you're at the beach, like you said, the county, you need a real estate agent who's educated on those things. Otherwise, you're going to invest a lot of money or invest a lot of time. Hopefully, you find out before you buy it. That, oh, I can't get a permit. Okay, I don't want to buy. But you buy the house and then find out, oh, I can't Airbnb because I don't have a permit.
Right.
Or you get that nasty letter from the city saying, hey, you're Airbnb and you don't have a permit.
Right.
Yeah.
Ours RS1 or RG1, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But going back to that first year, and we can not necessarily just that first 12 months, but I mean your initial get together. Tell us the story. What it took, how it got started. When did you get your first sale? Was it easy at first? Talk about some of those stresses. I mean, how many times did you say, I don't want to do this anymore? Is this for me? Yeah. Kind of go through and then what did you do to kind of overcome some of those things?
Well, obviously, since 2005, the market has changed drastically, and it continues to change. I mean, that's the one constant in real estate is it is going to change. There's ebbs and flows, there's ups and downs. When I started in 2005, it was a bit of a frenzied market. Lending was
footloose and fancy free.
There you go. There we go. Thank you for finishing that one for me. There were stated income loans, and anybody could get as much money as they wanted and buy whatever they wanted, interest only. But so as far as starting in 2005, I thought this is fabulous. People were buying things sight unseen, and I was just like, wow, I should have done this 10 years ago. This is great. 2005, 2006, the market's just rolling and rolling, and sellers can ask whatever they want, and buyers were paying for it. And then the recession. So I started kind of at the top of the hill, just rode that for a little while, and then. But
you got some at bats.
Yes.
Initially, to understand how the business was working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it was a good way to get some sales under my belt, and I was learning as I went, and my broker was walking me through some of those things. And there were also some really great agents, that if you were there, and needed help, they'd jump in and say, okay, this is what you need to do. So I learned a lot and felt that with every listing, every sale, that, that you got better and better and more comfortable with that side of the business. But, and then it changed. And then you go, okay, well, people still have to buy and sell property, whether it's the top of the market, the bottom of the market, or somewhere in between. Now, the recession was tough. But there are still people that had families that grew, who retired and wanted to downsize, who changed jobs. There's always going to be these life events that create a need to buy or sell property. So you focus on that. I also became really educated and an expert on selling short sales. I listed foreclosures. I adjusted with the market. Say, okay, where's the market going, and how can I fit into that? So with each of those different phases of the market back in the early 2000s, I learned a whole different aspect of the market. And so now when they do come up, or even if somebody asks, or has a question about foreclosures and how they work, I've got you covered.
Yeah.
And so that first 10 years, the market was all over the place, from the best to the worst and everywhere in between.
Right.
And so it gave me an opportunity to learn so much. Was it tough? And was the income always there? Not so much.
Because those short sales weren't closing overnight.
They were not short.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, could take months and months before you even find out an answer.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but you had, that's where the market was. So you either learned that and grew with the market and changed with the market, or you just kind of sat and waited for it to get good again.
Right.
So that's one of the things that has been challenging, but also really rewarding in the last 18 years, is really just changing with the market. You get up and go, okay, well, that's over. What are we doing next?
Or, there's been consistent talk. Obviously, we live in a very unique situation here. I think there's a few places in the country where we have people moving in, even with the interest rates as high as they are, and the prices are high because demand is high.
And inventory's low.
And employment's really good here, where I think other parts of the country, they're not so well off, is why some of them, want to move here. But again, having that ability to adapt, or was I was going to get to is, we're going to go into recessions, housing prices are going to drop, we're going to go back to short sales and foreclosures. Well, I mean, obviously, when they mention that, you're like, whatever, I've done that. Right? I imagine that was your reaction. I don't think it's really going to happen, but, if it does, I'm ready. Because obviously, you and I know 95% of the real estate agents out there right now, we're not here in that period of time, or fell out at that time and never came back. There's a lot of industries, the builders were one of those things, a lot of the tradesmen. When the collapse happened, there was a period of time where there was like 5 years there before the building started to come back up to where it was at its lowest it had ever been the previous 50 years. It went below that, and a lot of those tradesmen went off and started doing other type of work, and that, so we're short on those type of people.
And never came back to that industry.
Just a little side note there. During your time, you joined a brokerage with a senior agent who had probably had 20 years on it before you did it, or had some of those people in the office downtown. Mentors and coaches over the years. Can you, if you want to mention names and call them out, that'd be great. But how important were you able to really meet up with some other agents that like you said, in the office, you're the senior agent in the office at Watson. I mean, you're one of them, but when 2005 to 2015, you're growing, and of course the business changed in 7 and 8, 9, and you're doing the short sales. Was there some people in the business that you look towards for coaching and mentoring?
I would say, my first broker, his name was Roy Barnes, and he was a relationship, businessman. And just like my business has evolved into over the years, you're doing business with a lot of the same people over and over again, and they're referring business to you. And he was just very hands-on, took his time, educated buyers and sellers, set high expectations for himself on how he was going to handle the deal, and followed through with that. So he was always, no matter how, maybe I thought obscure or small my question was, half an hour later we were still discussing it. So it was great. I mean, and I was like, okay, well, you answered questions I didn't even know I was going to ask.
Right, exactly. So, those are good.
So those 20,
that's a good
30,
coach.
Yeah, those
who knows
20,
what's around the corner
years,
before you get there.
And you go, wow, that's a lot to take in. But, but you did.
Right.
And you tried to remember all that and sock it away. And, there were another few agents that had, been there a little bit longer than I had. Gail Jones was one of them. She was great, too. I shared an office with her. Just really, again, took time with her customers, educated, very level-headed, very thorough, very concise. And so whenever I, kind of felt like I was veering off somewhere and was losing a handle, on what I was doing, she's somebody I could just say, hey, can you look at this real quick? And she would talk me through some things. So, they were both great to work with. And there were a lot of good other agents. It was a smaller office, so there weren't 50,
Right. I'm sure at Watson you see these new agents come in every month and so forth. What if you were, you had a friend in another state or maybe somewhere else, and they joined a brokerage, maybe it's Watson, maybe so you weren't necessarily there in the office. How would you express to them or tell them what really, as a senior agent now, the importance of that new agent to approach some of the senior agents? Because most of them that I've talked to they're all about collaboration, and they do want to pour into you. People, whether it's an ego thing or everything, that they want, someone comes and asks them a question, they feel they're being looked up to, right? We all want to be looked up to and feel that we're knowledgeable. But for that new agent, how important is then to really consistently have conversations with these senior agents to really grow their education and get really you have the education at the board, but really the education's in those conversations.
It's It's the boots on the on the road. It's so important. And, and when there are new agents that either come to me with questions or Beth will say, hey, would you mind spending some time with, this person? And I'm always happy to do that. And I'll take calls and emails. We'll sit down and, even walking through learning systems, which you do in training, but you get a lot of training in the beginning.
Right.
And sometimes you're
and
like,
then you get the contract and then you,
I need to relearn this over again.
Yeah.
But it's so important. And it's important for senior agents to see and recognize that if you see a new agent who's just, who is struggling or has questions, and take the time to help them. And it's important for the newer agents not to be, apprehensive about asking.
Yeah. Well,
and senior agents, I mean, we ask each other stuff all the time.
Right.
So you've got to learn to bounce things off. We're all running our own business, but we can all still be there to support each other.
Because the natural thing is that you're, even though you're wearing the Watson logo, you're still Amy Gibbs, and that's still Sally Smith. And Sally Smith sees you, you guys are working the same general market as a competitor. How in your mindset as a real estate agent, you can't see the other agents. Yes, they are competition because yes, they would like to get that listing too. But how you earn that listing is really you. You as that person is bonding with you, whether it's because you're a male or a female, or you went to Florida State or whatever it is, or you don't know why people choose other agents.
Right.
But for them to duplicate, check out your buyer's guide, make it theirs, just to take those things, take the little things that you're doing, take this other senior agents, what they're doing, and make it yours. And you got to go out there and brand yourself. And it's really not the other agents that are necessarily your direct competition. They're actually more allies to you than they are competition in moving your business along.
Right, because we all have our own sphere of influence. We all have our own friends, family, neighbors, whatever, social networking groups you're a part of, or, organizations. I mean, everybody has their own, I'll say tribe.
Yeah, yeah.
And so is there some overlap, and does everybody know 10 realtors? Yes. But we all have our own relationships with our own groups of people. And as far as sharing and collaborating, the better we all can present ourselves and our individual businesses to the general public, the better it is for the entire industry. So I don't feel like any of the other agents in my office, whether they're new or senior, it doesn't matter to me. I don't feel like they're competition. They have a different sphere of influence. They've got a different group of people that they know, they interact with, who they're going to get repeat business from, who are going to refer them to other people, and I have my group of people that does that. So that's one of the things that's important to remember as a realtor, whether it's another realtor in your company or with another company. One, we all have to work together to make a deal come together.
Yes.
You've got somebody working with the buyer, somebody working with the seller. We have to work together and make that transaction run smoothly. We are not competitors. We're working together, for that transaction. And so the agents that are in my office or that I work with on a regular basis outside my office, we understand that. And there's a relationship and a professional courtesy that we owe each other.
Right.
To facilitate.
Now, I know you've run across some difficult, I'm going to call them partners, because I think you're partners when you're in a transaction together, buying, selling, and you're partnering up with them with an end goal. Some are a little more difficult than others. Have you found over the years to take some time to go to some of the social events, to really actually to meet some of the other realtors? And I like asking this question because Patty Ketchum, everyone knows Patty's probably one of the best real estate instructors in the state, and on the real estate board at the Tallahassee. She said, she regrets the first 10 years of her career not spending more time at the board. Amazingly, as far as she's gone in her career and her leadership, that really the first 10 years she did not actually. She goes, I didn't put a shadow on the door of the board of realtors. She just was doing her own thing. But she regrets that because of the relationships that she could have had, but of what we just talked about, whether it's that person being on the other side of the deal that knows you've met maybe had a coffee together, whatever, went to a social, but you guys, you face to face, or obviously, being under a great brokerage like Beth, and everyone knows Beth and knows, the people that are under her. So that gives you credibility too. But having that relationship when it comes to some of these, obviously we've got still getting multiple offers on houses and so forth, whose deal I'm going to accept, but also the relationship that you could go, oh, you know what? I know this agent. She handles Ponte Vedra Beach all the time. I met her at a board function or social. Let me call her because my client wants to sell or buy over there for some advice on, what's going on in that area of town, right? That kind of thing. How, for these agents, again, to inspire some of these new agents, really to dig in as the other agents are your allies, and you can learn more from them than there will ever be a competition.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would say, for the record, Patty and I were in the same club for the first 10 years. I mean, I had 2 itty bitty kids, and I was not, the time to go to some of those functions was just not there. But you did take the opportunity to get to know the agents on the other side of the deal, even if it was just over the phone. You know, as you went through the deal, you got to know those people and you formed those relationships. So it was a little more, not hands off, but a little more distance. I was not getting to all of the functions, but I built those relationships.
Well, now at 18 years,
ways.
if you were 18 months, you'd want to, 18 years now, you just through just natural progression. Everyone has gotten to know you.
and over the years, there's always, the agents that call that you've talked to, 100 times, and there's the agent that calls that you've never talked to before. I'm working on a deal now with an agent who's, she said, I knew her. I said, okay. I mean, the first thing I'll do, it doesn't matter
It's
to me.
nice that they actually said that versus just being, because I think the normal thing is when people don't know something, they can get defensive or something because they're trying to defend themselves because they don't know. The fact that this other agent's coming out and saying, I'm newer already.
And that helps
I want
me
to work with you, help me, guide me.
Yeah, and that helps me because one, I kind of know, where she is in her career and how I can help her and how we can work together to get the deal done. And absolutely, I'll send you a reminder. I'll send you, I'll walk you through something. Do you have questions about it? I mean, go ask your broker if it's something that's, a little more complicated, you're more comfortable with. But by all means, I've never met her before. But we're building this relationship with this contract, and I'll help her through it in any way I can.
To put yourself in, Apple came out with their new virtual reality glasses yesterday for $3,500. So to put yourself into the virtual reality of a real estate transaction, that some agents that I'm going to use the word combative or just hard to work with, do they almost sometimes you think they feel like you're trying to get one over on them? I mean, because ultimately it's their sellers who are choosing, hey, I'll take that offer and go. That's their choice. That's not the agent's choice.
Right.
And it doesn't take anything away from their, oh, you didn't sell it for the asking price. You sold it for, $10,000 less. Okay. Who cares? You sold the house.
It's the seller
sold it.
Right.
The seller said it's okay to drop it because you probably overpriced it already anyway right now in this market. But to have that mindset that, you might be, telling this new agent, I don't know, maybe would you or would you not tell, here's our offer and here's why.
Right.
Right. So if that agent's good, they go to their seller and say, they're offering this. They do have, here's their reasoning. Do you want to sell it for that? That's their choice. I think, would you agree? Some people think you're trying to steal something from them.
Yes.
Yeah, because you're offering a little bit lower price and have reasons why.
Right.
Yeah.
And you do get agents on on both sides of the deal that I think become a little bit can become not personally involved. I'm trying to think of, but
Emotionally,
offended at your offer. Say okay, and like you said, I always tell my buyers that okay, so if it's listed at 500 and you want to offer 425, we have to be able to say why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And okay, well, everything else is sold for, 425 and yours is exactly the same, or whatever the case.
Yeah.
It's never that simple. But,
Yeah.
you know, I say we always have to come with a why.
Yeah.
And when you do run across an agent, which is rare, but it happens. I mean, just like buyers and sellers, everybody's got a different personality, so you just have to roll with it.
Right. And you're representing the buyer there, and you're offering 425. You're probably already cringing, right? You're like going, they want 500, 425. Unless someone just, because I have seen some people in even my neighborhood, St. John's Golf and Country Club, list a house for $1.3 million, and it was at best 8 or 9. It's
Right. It's like, well, we're offering $850.
Yeah,
Here we go.
they're hoping some California buyer comes
Right.
in like totally blind and just says, "Oh, yeah, I want that house."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes sometimes you have to remind an agent in a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
Our role as a transaction broker.
Yeah.
Say, okay, well, we're transaction brokers. Tell me if you're not, if you're a single agent, but otherwise we're transaction brokers, and this is what our responsibilities are.
Yeah.
And I've presented an offer with context and with data, and this is why we're offering this. Just present it to your sellers and let me know what they say.
Counter.
Yeah.
And please counter.
Yeah. And if you have a counter and can substantiate your counter, then
Yeah.
then go for it.
Because would you agree? I mean, you've done enough transactions that when it's all said, when they finally agree, right? You're gone through that negotiate. Okay, we agree. We got a contract. We're gonna sell it for this, whatever the deal is. The deal is the deal. We're going for it. At that point, the animosity's over, because if they felt that I'm paying too much or I'm selling too low, they would have just said no.
Right.
And then you never would have. But when they sign the contract, they're making that choice, and it's now no longer your responsibility. You negotiated it back and forth for them. Okay, everyone agreed. That
Right.
boom. All right, we're done with that part. Let it go. Let's move on.
Exactly.
Yeah. To the
Moving on.
inspection.
And then it gets real.
Yeah. Knowing what you know now, in your experience, what are, again, you've had some new agents come in, and maybe you've talked to some recently or working with some now. What are three things that you would tell a new agent today that they should be doing?
Number one, it's really getting out and talking to people, creating your sphere of influence, and creating value for those people. Not just I'm wearing my name tag, here's my card, call me if you need to sell. But really, and to kind of preempt that, maybe number two is really take your time, talk to other agents, learn your market, talk to the property appraiser, talk to the city official. I mean, learn as much as you can to really be able to understand whatever market it is you want to focus in. So learn your market, get out there and meet people, create value, start creating relationships, and start asking the right questions to the people that you're talking to find out where they are in their life. If they're thinking of downsizing or upsizing, or their parents are moving down, or their kids are moving away and they want to downsize. Get to know people and be able to help guide them into that real estate process and be the person that they think of that's top of mind when they do get to that point. You'll learn. I mean, you need to ask questions and get to know people, and then you're there for them, and it's an easy transition when it's time to buy or sell, or for their friends to buy or sell. I've got so many customers when I update, my database and make sure I've got everybody there and organized. There's so many people over the years that I've just done deals with over and over and over. And then their sister, and then their sister's friend. And then the friend has 3 cousins.
Right.
I mean, it just, it just kind of keeps rolling.
I mean, how many times, especially now, these people are moving into these neighborhoods, maybe even new construction, and they're calling their friends back in New York saying, you need to move in, and you need to move into this subdivision.
Right.
And,
and you need to call Amy because she knows what's going on.
Yeah, she'll take care of you.
She understands this subdivision and took care of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. The CRM. I think probably most people, and you might be guilty of this or not, I don't know, but they kind of get started and they neglect, because you start acquiring relationships or people to submit in the CRM. Well, it depends on what your attitude is on who's qualified to put in the CRM. Who are you going to put in there?
Right.
our keynote speaker for the RE Bar Camp, she said that she tries to put 8 people into her CRM every day. I assume she means 5 days a week. She's trying to make an interact, whether she's interacting with whoever, she's trying to put 8 people a day in there. So over time, again, trickling on, letting them know who you are. You start sending them out a newsletter, or maybe you're got it narrowed down to neighborhoods, or if you're farming a neighborhood or that sort of thing. How important is it for, as one of the skills, as a new agent, is get really good at the CRM really early.
Right.
Yeah.
And, in the very beginning of my real estate career, there wasn't a massive database. It was all in my head. And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, this is too much.
Yeah, who have I talked to recently? Who did I talk to so-and-so last week? Did I talk to the other one?
I got that. I'm going to remember that. Maybe 18 years ago, I could remember that, but I cannot now. So setting up a good CRM, and whatever your goal is, whether it's 8, whether it's 2 a day, whatever your number is, set that goal, stick to it, and then if it's something you can build on over time. But it is important to add those people and to really take the time, not only just to say, okay, well, I met Joe today at the coffee shop, I shook his hand, he's in my CRM, and I'm just going to start sending him stuff. I don't do it that way. I mean, I really focus on really building those relationships.
Know a little bit about Joe. He's retired. He's a veteran, whatever.
Right. Ask those questions, get to know him, and then tailor what I'm sending to him. Call him, send him a note card. Say, hey, I saw on Facebook, that your son graduated.
Right.
Congratulations. And really start building a relationship, and not one that is forced. These are natural relationships that we're going to build in our life, and that's what I do. That's what I do. You're always going to meet new people and build new relationships, but keep it genuine and organic.
It's an interesting way you say. I want to dig on that one, because this is a kind of dilemma that I've deal with. It's you only can really truly spend time with so many people in a day, right? And if you've got kids, those are the ones you need to be spending your most time, and then your spouse, and and then there might be some outer circles you're running around. Maybe it's the kids' ball team because you're spending all that time there. Those are the people at the moment. There's these other people like Joe you meet at the coffee shop, and you do exchange, and you find out a little bit about them, but you're not really likely just to call Joe and say, hey, Joe, you and your wife want to go out to dinner, because you haven't really got that kind of relationship.
Right.
But when you talk about building a level of relationship with them, dig a little deeper on someone like that Joe character, someone who's not in your immediate circle, but you want to add him in the circle so that he knows you,
right,
and what you do, and how, if he needs help, you're here. Right? How do you continue to just, that those are people in your relationship, and what kind of stuff are you, like you said, what kind of information are you sending them? How do you set that person up in your CRM, the type of things, and how often do you call them?
Right. And I think as far as, like you said, how often do you call them, it really depends on the person. And honestly, it's a work in progress. It's something we could all be better at. Doing exactly what you said to do. Okay, what do you do with Joe? Sometimes you're like, oh shoot, I don't know what to do with Joe. I don't know. But the more, I've got systems that are automated, and then I've got things that I like to do, and I'm trying to be, as I build, continue to build my business, get more organized with these kinds of things. Let's just say I'm going to do an ice cream social on the 4th of July for customers and friends. Invite Joe. Or, like I said, if you see something, on Facebook that, Joe got a promotion, call him or send him a card.
Right.
And when
that's always a good one too, is to actually
stalk social media.
Start social media. Whether it's a birthday, maybe you didn't have their birth date.
Yeah.
Now you've got their birthday, because now they just said the birthdays today, or their spouse said something about them. Yeah.
And it's just creating those relationships, like I said, on that real organic level. And if you think about it, when was the last time that someone sent you a note card, sent you a handwritten card? They don't do it anymore. And it's rewarding on my side, because I know that's going to make somebody smile when they get a card in the mail. I just had a seller tell me the other week, they're like, I don't think we've gotten actual piece of mail like that. In
You just
20 years.
You just gave me a brilliant idea. I'm gonna write it down. Go ahead, keep going.
So and maybe it's a review of recent sales of property in their area, which is is a little bit more generic. But find out what makes them tick, what their needs are, and kind of tailor your follow up with that. Everybody's not the same. That's one thing. I mean, I use my CRM for some automated type of things, but really I'm getting to know each person, and I'm tailoring my follow-up based on the person. But I'm also trying to really continue to work on having sort of not a preset plan for the year, like down to, down to the minute, but have some things that where I invite people to get, back together socially, or ask them to, help with a fundraiser or whatever it is, and just continue to build those relationships.
Well,
so
no doubt, any of the new agents listening, 100, like I said, 150th episode's going to be on Friday, and CRM, start early, start stealing tricks from what other top agents are doing, because I think you'll find a lot of them didn't do it really hard, but now the reason why their business is why they're now a top agent is because somewhere along that line they figured out their CRM and how they could leverage it and make it part, turn business from it.
Right.
From working on.
And some of it happens quickly, and some of it 10 years later you go, wow, that one just paid off.
Yeah.
I laugh that I'm selling almost every house on the street where I used to live. Not when I lived there, and I sold it, and now I'm slowly selling every other house on.
Well, I haven't told this story in a long time, so if I have some new listeners on versus originally when I stole, Ryan Serhanton's original book, Selling Like Serhan, I got Big Money in, that's the second book, but Selling Like Serhan, he tells the story of a postcard he sent regularly to this customer that he added to his CRM. I don't know if it was, I think it was quarterly or something, but 5 years of no response, no nothing. He was sending this card saying, I'm Ryan Serhan and I'm selling in New York. Guy called and bought a $17 million, condo, apartment, whatever you call them in New York. And he calculated it was, his commission was like $240 a day because he continued to consistently send and touch that person, never talked to him, just got a call out of the blue and said, I want to buy this one right here, write up the contract. I mean, how great is that? Right.
So that there is, something to be said for that consistency.
Yep.
You can have those automated things, and then you also have like the face-to-face touch or the personal touch.
Well, Ryan kept trying. The person on the other side was receiving but didn't respond. It doesn't, unless they hit the unsubscribe button, if you're selling them an email, right? They could hit the unsubscribe and get off your list. Okay, they don't want to talk to you anymore. But those ones that keep receiving, those people are potentials, and they continue because, like I said, 10 years, you never know.
And I think it's important too. Every time you send something to somebody, whether it's automated or in person, it doesn't have to. You're not selling them something. You're giving them something. You're providing them something.
Educating them.
And whether it's articles about home ownership or renovation that adjust, like based on the articles they choose, then it'll adjust the next newsletter because these are the kind of things they like. So you're tailoring it towards them. Or if you're sending them a card, it's for something, specific. You're not just, I try not to send out just blank. I mean, there are the sold postcards or the just listed postcards. And if you work in an area and farm it a lot, people are going to see that consistency.
I just thought, St. Augustine always has an event going on every weekend. There's like something going on all the time. You could send a postcard every week talking about what's going on in St. Augustine for the weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, on my website, I actually have a link to St. Augustine events because, like you said, there is something, every day.
You're educating them and telling them. And a lot of the county doesn't even realize a lot of things that are going on there. My wife's now on the board at Limelight Theater. A lot of people on 210 know nothing about Limelight Theater.
Right.
So she's working on trying to obviously spread the word more that's there, because there are a lot of little treasures, but those are little educational pieces. They're like, oh, thanks for telling me that. I didn't know that existed or that's going on. You go, so the brokerage that you were, he looks, so you chose Watson. What was was it just their presence at the beach? What was it about Watson? Did you talk to other brokers?
I did.
You did.
I talked to other brokerages. Watson aligned with the philosophy of the brokerage that I worked at before. It was just on a much larger scale. So even though it's a larger brokerage, it still has that same philosophy that we're putting, our customers first, and it's a relationship business. And so I liked Mr. Watson's, business philosophy.
Was it Mr. Watson, or was there other agents in that office?
No.
'Cause I can't believe Mr. Watson himself was your.
And my first broker and Mr. Watson went way back too.
Okay, well, that I can understand.
Yeah, and so and I had worked with Beth before. We went to a conference one time before, and I really liked Beth's personality. I liked the way she worked. I knew that would be a comfortable, easy place for me to be. That I
You have a friend in the office, someone. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And so I knew that was a place that I could fit in well, and she would be a broker that I would like to hang my license with. But I also just felt that the business philosophy that I had, in the last brokerage and kind of where I wanted to take my business, it kind of combined those two. It was that local real estate, which happens to be a big regional real estate brokerage, and all the resources that were available to me. It was the right combination at the right time.
A little earlier, you got into some of the details of some of the systems and so forth that are just a foundation of Watson all the time. All the agents are tapping into it, but sometimes as a person, whether in a real estate agent is just that microcosm, that one individual that really has to learn how they want to do business, how they like doing it, and obviously hopefully what they like to do turns into money, right? Turns into transactions, buying or selling, dealing with them. What have you learned about yourself over the 18 years? Because I imagine it's probably changed. Amy in 2005, 6, and 7, Amy 2023, you're probably doing your business a little differently and so forth. How important, in if you could tell just a little bit about yourself, what you've learned about yourself, about a new agent coming in, you've got to learn a little bit about yourself, what you like to do, what clicks for you, and obviously because you got to do it consistently and every day, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I would say, let me think about that one. That's a big one. I could go in a lot of different directions there. Threw that one at me. So in the beginning, you do feel a bit like, you really need to choose a direction, and there's so many directions you could go in as to how you want to run your business. It can be a little overwhelming, a little chaotic, and I think new agents, may feel that they don't know what to focus on. Well, I need to do mailings. I need to be in this organization. I need to talk to all these people. I need, and finding your course and finding what you want to focus on and what works for you does take time. I don't think in your first, year in real estate, for most people, they don't dial it in and go, okay, this is what works for me. This is what makes me happy.
And then boom,
this is what gets me the most deals.
Money. Yeah.
It's trial and error too. You're like, so you have to kind of try different avenues, and how you want to run your business and create new business and create relationships and see what works for you. And my personality is it's more of a one-on-one, get to know your personality. I do business with people that I know really well or I've gotten to know really well, and it's not always somebody that I've had to have known for a long time. I'll get a sign call from someone I've never talked to before, and you talk to them and you educate them and you start building that relationship, and then all of a sudden they're not a stranger anymore, and you really understand what they're looking for and why, and you go help them, and then you can do business with them again over the years. I've just kind of built it from kind of that organic level, and that's what works for me.
Well, because you were born here, you're comfortable. You've lived 99% of your life here in St. Augustine, so you've your family already knew people. You went to the high school, so you kind of already have a little bit, but you still have to go and remind those people of what you're doing
constantly, and you have to earn that position.
Trust and credibility,
because like I said, everybody knows 10 realtors.
Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody, their neighbor and their friend and their cousin all have their real estate license, but you need to be the one that they trust to get them through this process.
Right.
And like I said in the beginning, it's an emotional process, and financially it can be a stressful process. And there's always bumps in the road. And so you need to build yourself and build your reputation and your relationships with these people to be the one that they trust. And do I have answers to every single question? I don't. But I know where to go to get those answers, and I'm willing to dig as much as we need to dig to get the answers that either the seller or the buyer needs.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
like I said, you know, look under the sink. Try not to crawl under the house, but look under the house. You know, put the boots on. I had customers. We were looking at vacant land, and it was gated, and we were allowed to be there. But you know,
Yeah.
we literally put our boots on, and
Yeah.
we climbed the fence, and you know, tromped through the woods,
Yeah,
looked at
it
property.
could be a good rattlesnake's home.
Yeah,
You never
and it
know.
was fun. Yeah, and they're like, "You've climbed a fence before." I'm like, "Yes, I have." Yeah, yeah. Let's go. You know, so you can't be afraid to just jump in there and do business the way it you know it works for you.
Would you know a lot of the things you know, because I listen to a lot of different podcasts and so forth, and they're recommending find someone at least at the moment, because like you said, you evolved how you want to do your business. You start doing it this way. Okay, I'm doing okay, but you know what? I really like doing it that way, and I'm going to add that. Now you know, hopefully that moves you.
Right.
You know,
Like I'm
along the
doing this and it
production.
takes a ton of time, but it doesn't feel like it's, you know, I'm reaping any benefits from it.
Right.
You know, but I spent a little time doing this and I really like that.
Yeah.
I wish I could just do that.
Yes. To find someone who's doing the business like that, similar to the way you want to do your, because we can all look at some of these top producers and go, "Oh man, I want to do it. I want to be like them." And then you go and you sit in their camp and learn what they're doing, and you're like, "I don't like this."
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is to find someone that's doing the business, hopefully the way you think you like doing it, and really spend time with them and finding out what are they doing. You know, again, advice for a new agent. Would you agree?
Absolutely. You know, some people may sit down with me and go, I don't want to do that. You know, that doesn't work for me. I want to just kind of, you know, blast out a broader, you know, broadcast, you know, network of people, and I want to do all of these other things, and that works for them. But I think what any agent, any newer agent can learn from another agent, or even seasoned agents, we still learn things from each other,
Yeah.
and we, you know, you still learn things in every deal, is have the foundation so that when you do meet those people and you do form those relationships, that you have the tools to be their trusted advisor and their trusted agent who can get them through a transaction. So regardless of how you market yourself and what you do on a day-to-day basis to do that, whether it's automated, in person, a combination, or however you're doing it, you've got to take the time to learn your market and be that trusted advisor.
Now, if I was a new agent, if I was the average new agent, because I'm going to put myself above that, but if I was the average new agent, I heard you just say that, I'd be like, oh my God, I got to learn everything about real estate, because if I go and make a relationship with Joe, and Joe asks me a question, and I don't know the answer to it.
First thing you say is, I don't have the answer to that, but I'm going to find out for you. But
Right.
and you build it, you know, like, so if you want to learn more about property taxes and how they're reassessing property after closing, so you can talk to somebody and have an educated conversation about how your taxes may change, go sit down with the property appraiser. I mean, I've done it. I said,
Eddie
hey,
Creamer has
Eddie, can I, you know,
education stuff all the time.
right, and
Yeah.
he'll come out to brokerages and do it too. But one
Yeah.
time, you know, I had some specific questions. I said, hey, can I come in and talk to Eddie? And we sat down and chatted for
They're
like
really
an
good
hour.
they're really good at
Yeah.
that,
And
the county
so,
office.
Yeah, just, I mean, start picking away, like, hey, once a
Yeah.
week, go talk to somebody, you know, that you haven't talked to before. Or when a home inspector is there at a home inspection, follow them around and being annoying and go, well, how do you know that the air conditioner is from 2014? Well, it's right there in the serial number. Ha! Now I can look at an air conditioner with my customers and I can tell you how old the air conditioner is. I mean, you like, so you just kind of, you build things and you ask questions.
Well, when
pick
when you're
your
first
brains.
starting out, you have a lot of time. I mean, if you don't have any deals, to go in, you know, as a very new agent, there's some loan officers, some inspectors, you know, and title companies that may or may not entertain you, even though you haven't even done a deal yet.
Right.
I mean, and I know there's a lot of new loan officers that would just say they met up with someone who had a real estate license and they're good, right? But to have those conversations, find out who, like, you know, obviously you have your preferred list of people you're probably regularly working with, to come in the office and say, hey, Amy, who do you work with? And to call on those people and say, hey, I'd love to have coffee with you. And have some questions. What are challenges? What do I need to be aware of if I'm, going out and doing whatever?
Right.
I mean, you only a half a dozen questions. I imagine it's probably going to end up with a couple dozen questions as the conversation, as like our conversation has progressed.
Right.
And learn from these guys that are out there doing it. They're going to tell you, yeah, we're having problems with this, or the insurance guy. Oh, I got to check that roof age, right? That's the first thing, right? How old's that roof? To gauge the insurance. And they'll educate you over for a cup of coffee. I mean, that,
Right.
In a lot of those other things, some of the top agents, that's what they said they did. I had all the time when I was, first starting, and I would take that time to have lunch with somebody or have a cup of coffee with them, and half the time they're going to buy anyway, so don't worry about it.
Because they know I
Yeah,
don't have
even
any
if you
money.
invited them, they'll probably still buy. So, but to educate yourself,
Yeah, talk to people and learn. And a lot of your contacts are going to come from other agents. You get in with a good office and you say, hey, oh my gosh, who are you using for insurance right now? Because I'm striking out.
yeah,
And get those good referrals for affiliates who other agents are having good experiences with or have long histories with, and then you get to know them, and then and vendors change over
Yeah.
the years, and so use the other, like you said, use the other agents in your office.
always ask
to
them
kinda
why
make
they're
those-
using them. Here's
Yes.
because there are some relationships out there that unfortunately, title companies are getting better. Because I used to, even when I first started, I could tell you 3 or 4 title companies that to me are slam dunk home runs, best places to work for. Now, there could be others. I just haven't met them yet. But there are others out there that I could just tell you right away. So you have to, why do you like them? Why do you like that insurance company? Well, because if the date changes, the closing date changes a week before closing, I have a new insurance docs in 30 minutes,
Right.
with the new date on it and
Right.
stuff, and where there's other insurance companies, well, we have to go, in 2 days. And meanwhile, your closing guy at the lender, they're going, hey, where's this the new insurance so we can get this thing,
Right. And
clear to
sometimes you
close.
need your insurance company and your lender on a Saturday or Sunday
Yeah.
because we're working.
Yeah.
And you need those people who are going to be able to communicate with you and get you what you need. You
Yep.
know, I've got there's a few title companies. I don't have one company that I work with for everything, but one of them, I mean, if I send a text on a Saturday morning at 7:30, he answers me.
Yeah.
And even if it's not, an email, something that's not time sensitive, boom.
Yeah.
He answers, just says, thanks. I'll send a contract, and thanks right away. I'm like, wow.
We would think, I would think everyone did, but my mindset has always been, but I know I'm in a probably, I don't know, maybe the top 20% of, from the lending side. If you're calling me on Saturday afternoon at 4:00, it's because someone probably doesn't have a pre-qual, or they need a question like, hey, what's the payment going to look like? Because we didn't expect it, but we're ready to make an offer on this house. I just want to know what that tastes like before
Right.
you know what I mean? And there's a deal going down. There's money going to be transactions. So hopefully
Everybody
Monday
doesn't
morning.
wait till Monday.
Monday morning, their contract is in your email and you're ready to go put it in the system because you took a phone call for 15, 20 minutes on a Saturday afternoon. Yeah. And you have those relationships with those people because it takes the weight off your shoulders. You're out there doing the battle. You're in the ground. You're one-on-one. And if I can relieve you of that pressure, well,
Right. Build your network of those reliable people.
100.
And that being said, none of us need to be expected to be available 24/7.
Yeah.
People would like us to be. But that's also an important thing for new agents is really try and set some parameters from the beginning. And I'm guilty of trying to just get my day rolling and send out some things early so that they're out and I've checked them on the list, but then I've just made myself available at 6:30 in the morning. And that's not how you can sustainably run a reasonable business and not just burn out. So setting some boundaries is good, and for yourself is important too. But there's times
Erica Harding had a great tip a few episodes back. She says she schedules emails, so she may write it at 10, 11 o'clock, but she doesn't schedule to go out till 8 o'clock in the morning because
Some
if you
new
send it
Apple
out at 10:30,
updates.
you may have an answer at 6:30 in the morning, and then now the ball's back on your side.
Exactly. You did it. I know. So now with some of the Apple updates.
Yeah.
I think with text messages too. I think you can start to schedule things.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. Better. But there's times when you're gonna have that 8 p.m. phone call, or you have a seller that lives out of the country or is in California, or there's times when you definitely have to deviate from your best case scenario. My day starts at 9 and ends at 6. That
Yeah.
That's on a good day. But if you try and make that your practice and focus on downtime too, it makes your business, more sustainable.
I'm going to round out. This is my last formal question here.
Okay.
I imagine, over 18 years, you've been asked more times than you can even imagine. People who think they, want to get into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
How do you address it? I imagine you've had friends.
Yeah, I was thinking about getting my
Neighbors.
license.
Yeah.
It's like fun.
What's it like? How do you set that expectation?
So what I tell them is that I love the industry. I wouldn't have been in it for this long had I not. And it's worked for me. And it is definitely something that you can do. Because people say, well, I want to do it part-time or, flexible. It is a flexible schedule, but it's not flexible on your terms. Get used to the fact that you are going to have to be available when people, want you, need you. You need to set some boundaries. But for the most part, it's a flexible, it can be a flexible job, but it's not flexible based on your schedule. There's a lot that you're going to want to learn as your real estate license. It's a comprehensive course, but when you finish the course, license law and some financial information, but it doesn't teach you how to sell a house.
Keeps you from getting in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And so, to think about those things and really take your time, because, if you think you want to do it 3 days a week, this is not the industry for you. If you want your weekends off, it's not the industry for you. You're going to get plenty of them, off if you structure things right, and then over time your business, goes that way. But this weekend I'm working, and I'm going in a bunch of different directions, and that's just part of it. But also in the long run, if you do build your business in the right ways and really build those relationships and build your business, that is going to afford you the things that you would like real estate to provide to you down the road. It's just probably not going to do it for a little while.
Right.
You're going to have to dig in.
You're promoted on your own merit.
Yeah.
Really?
So
I never really said that before, but ultimately you're promoted by your own merit.
Right. You're going to earn that week's vacation. And when you finally have, to the point where you can take that week's vacation and you've got support back at home for someone who can help you handle your business while you're gone.
Yeah.
So it's not one of those, well, she's out till next Monday. I guess we'll just wait. It's not how it works.
You gotta have that partner, so to speak, that good friend in that office that's kind of understands when you're out, they've got you, and when they're out, you've got them. You've got to just work that way. Yeah.
Get to know the agents in your office. Find mentors, find people like that where you're each running your own business, but you're also there, to go to bat for
cover
each
showing because you're doubled up because whatever, and hey, you call Sally because she's a good friend, and you're going to cover her when she's doubled up.
So build those relationships, within your office too.
Is there anything you want to that we haven't talked about here as we finish up that you want someone to know about Amy?
About Amy, I have earned every gray hair on my head. No, I think going into real estate was the best decision that I could have made. I've enjoyed it. I couldn't even have fathomed when I started how many people I would have met, how many lives you affect, on a daily basis, and how important that is, and I like the fact that I haven't lost sight of that part of it. And I've met just the most amazing people over time, and it's funny because every single person you deal with is completely different.
Oh, yeah.
Than the next one. Sometimes I think, gosh, if I put all these people in a room together and I had like a party, like how would this go? Because they're just. But it's I love the business, and it's afforded me time to raise our kids and not have them grow up in daycare, and I've double dipped kind of the clock sometimes doing that, but it's worked for me, and I love it, and I love my customers. They're fun.
Right.
We have a lot of fun, and that's part of it too, is to remember that the stressful, process can be enjoyable too. So
well, I appreciate you coming on today. I hope
Thanks for
everyone learned a
having
little
me.
bit, little bit about you. I think we got some good stuff out of here. We'll cut some extra, like I said, the content and the reels, and get you out there.
Wonderful.
I didn't ask you how your YouTube channel is, and most agents don't have a YouTube channel, which I'm working on with my partner. You're going to meet him in a little bit, Matt, if he showed up. He's coming in here on creating YouTube, because I think YouTube is, to me, I don't understand why more agents aren't pouring into it, because all these people from New York are Googling you. They want to know who you are before they come down here.
Right.
They may pick you up if you're buying leads or whatever, but social media and getting to know you one way, shape, or you might not be a big Instagram person, want to post all the time, but by posting your videos of your homes and what you're doing and something like this, people get to know you, and they can actually see you and talk and interact. So
that's one of the things I'm working on.
Yeah.
I dabble in a video or a reel here and there, but sometimes you're like, okay, wait a minute, I need to stop what I'm doing, and I need to,
You're
to
the
do
fact that you were born and raised in St. Augustine. There were to me, there's like so many treasures of stories that you could tell. Oh, this restaurant is now this. It was this and that and the other thing. After Hurricane whatever, this became that. And, and just obviously the growth in to show that you were here during all this growth. 210 was a dirt road when I grew up.
There was no 312 bridge.
Yeah, exactly. Or it was a drawbridge or whatever, right, over Volano. I don't know when they replaced the Volano bridge, right? That there's pictures of it.
There's a drawbridge, and now there's a pier.
Yeah,
there with part of the old drawbridge.